You're locked into Dodor Vibe FM from Little Haiti to the world. And right now, it's time to dive in. This is Dodor Vibe Deep Dive, your rundown of the top stories that mattered this week, from Haiti to the US, Port-au-Prince to Paris, and across the Caribbean diaspora. News, culture, and headlines that hit home. Whether you missed it or need a recap, we've got you. This is Dodor Vibe Deep Dive, and it starts right now. Let's go. June 10th to June 16th, 2025.
Okay, let's dive in. There's a lot happening with Haiti and, U.S. policy. It's moving really fast, complex stuff based on what we've been reading.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just like abstract policy. It's hitting the ground hard in Haiti, right? Interacting with a really tough situation there.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've pulled together a stack of recent reports, Dodor Vibe news from just this past week, personal accounts mixed in too.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission really is to take these pieces and try to fit them together to help you understand this multi-layered crisis happening within Haiti right now.
Right.
And also these significant, really rapid shifts we're seeing in U.S. immigration and travel policies that the sources say are directly impacting Haitians and others too.
And what's striking when you look across these sources is how you get such different perspectives, the official policy language, the broad statements.
Yeah.
But then you also get the immediate, often really stark impact on individual lives through those personal stories. Our goal is to try and connect those dots for you.
Okay, so let's start with what the sources are describing inside Haiti itself. This crisis seems to be, rapidly intensifying. What stands out?
Well, the core issue, universally highlighted, is the surge in armed gang violence. This isn't just about, typical crime anymore. The reports show it's forcing massive numbers of people from their homes.
Massive, intense, right? I saw one source citing UN data that really jumps out. A record 1.3 million people displaced just in the past 6 months alone because of the violence.
Oh.
That number, it just paints such a clear picture of how quickly things are worsening for ordinary people.
Right, and this violence has these really direct consequences for daily life, for connectivity, even just basic movement. We saw one report mention that gang activity had completely stopped commercial air travel from the capital, Port-au-Prince, since November of last year.
Since November. So think about that. No commercial flights out of the main airport for months on end.
Exactly.
But the sources did note one small, maybe recent sign of domestic travel trying to resume.
Uh-huh. Yeah, a Sunrise Airways flight reportedly took off from Port-au-Prince to Cap Haitian recently. First commercial flight in 7 months, apparently.
And there was that quote shared from a passenger on the flight, James Sean Charles, who said, "The country is infested with gangs. You can't go by road."
Yeah.
That really just brings home the challenge, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It highlights how dangerous just moving within the country has become. This domestic flight starting up again, even if it's just one small step, it underscores how critical air travel is when the roads are basically unsafe.
Yeah.
Jean-Charles, the passenger, hadn't traveled in over a year, was eager to see family, had struggled even with phone connections.
So given this really dire internal situation, the sources also touch on international efforts.
Yeah.
Security-wise. What are the reports saying there?
Yes, and the consensus across the material seems to be that the current UN-backed security mission, the one led by Kenya, it's facing pretty significant challenges. It's described as underfunded, poorly manned, and the sources indicate it just hasn't managed to make significant headway against this spiraling gang crisis.
And that's where you see leaders like Brazil's President Lula stepping in, calling for changes.
Exactly. Lula is noted in the sources as joining a growing chorus of voices, urging the UN to either, finance the current mission much more effectively, or formally convert it into a proper UN peacekeeping mission. If we connect this, Brazil actually led a previous peacekeeping mission in Haiti, though that one also faced its own controversies mentioned elsewhere.
Okay.
But the reports make it clear there's this perceived need for a stronger, more effective international force right now.
Okay, let's transition then to the significant shifts happening with U.S. policy, because this is where the sources really detail rapid and impactful changes that are being felt directly by people.
Yeah, and this raises an important question. How do these U.S. policies respond to, or perhaps interact with, that crisis situation we were just talking about in Haiti? The sources detail at least 2 major actions recently.
And the first one the sources highlight is huge. The revocation of humanitarian parole for hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes, huge. According to the reports, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, began notifying individuals from specific countries, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, that their temporary permission to live and work in the U.S., it's been revoked.
Yeah.
And they should leave.
And this impacts a really large group. The sources say about 532,000 people from these 4 countries. These are people who originally entered under a specific program created back in October 2022.
Right.
They had financial sponsors, were given 2-year permits.
And the notices, which the sources report were sent by email, state that both their temporary legal status, that humanitarian parole, and their work permits are revoked effective immediately.
Wow, immediately.
DHS reportedly encouraged them to leave voluntarily using the CBP One app, and the sources noted that while travel assistance and maybe $1,000 on arrival home were mentioned, details weren't provided on exactly how that follow-through would work.
Yeah, that sounds vague. And here's where it gets particularly impactful, according to the reports. Immigration advocates, like Krishil Mara Vignaraja from Global Refuge, were quoted calling this a deeply destabilizing decision.
A key insight here, drawn from the advocates' perspective in the sources, is that these are people who, by all accounts in the reports, played by the rules. They passed screenings, paid for their travel, got work authorization, had begun the process of rebuilding their lives here. The revocation just pulls the rug out from under all that stability.
The sources include a personal account that really illustrates this from Zamora, a Cuban mother. She arrived under this parole program with a sponsor. Her parole was revoked.
Right.
And she's now quoted expressing deep fear of deportation, especially being separated from her son. She's reportedly trying to find other legal pathways, maybe through the Cuban Adjustment Act, and is even considering stopping work just to avoid being detected.
Yeah.
It really shows the immediate fear and uncertainty these policy changes create for individuals.
That profound uncertainty is definitely a recurring theme. And the second major policy change detailed in the sources is the travel ban.
Yes, the full ban on travel from Haiti, which the sources state made it the only country in the Western Hemisphere with fully restricted travel as of June 9th.
Right.
The ban also reportedly applies to nationals from 11 other countries and heightens restrictions for 7 more, including Venezuela and Cuba.
And the reports state that the administration cited reasons like high visa overstay rates and national security concerns as the basis for this ban.
But the sources highlight the really wide-reaching practical impact. It affects individuals like business travelers from Haiti, who typically come to places like Miami or New York, and potentially even people needing life-saving medical care, who might now be forced to rely on Haiti's already struggling hospitals.
And we also hear about Luckner Raymond, remember, the Haitian co-founder of the nonprofit Project Rouge, which does important work.
Yes, that story.
The sources detail how he had a visa appointment scheduled to travel to Indianapolis to meet with his U.S. colleagues and donors, but that trip got canceled. The travel ban took effect just days before he was supposed to fly.
His U.S. colleague, Gemelyn Williamson, also a co-founder, expressed her distress in the report, noting how much Raymond carries the organization and how vital that face-to-face meeting was for encouragement, for planning. It's a really specific example of how a broad policy can directly impact even nonprofit work aimed at helping Haiti.
It really personalizes the policy's reach, far beyond just typical migration discussions. Raymond himself was quoted feeling embarrassed, kind of questioning why good people who aren't criminals should be barred.
And this isn't just affecting people trying to enter the country. Pastor Lucas Charles, who left Haiti back in 2006, he served in the National Police there, now pastors a church in Indianapolis. He notes the fear that has spread through the Haitian community he serves there, according to the source.
Yeah, he reports seeing lower church attendance because people are afraid of operations by ICE immigration and customs enforcement. And they're concerned with the overall climate described as sort of anti-immigrant rhetoric.
So even Haitians with established legal status, like those with temporary protected status, TPS, or even green cards, are reportedly feeling unsure of their protections amidst these rapid changes.
Exactly. The source quotes someone saying, "Not everyone is 100% sure what's right, what's not. They're scared of IC. They're scared of just kind of being outside." It really highlights this climate of fear reported within the community, even among those who seem securely here.
Right.
And Pastor Charles makes a critical point from his perspective. He believes many Haitians don't come just for economic reasons. They are genuinely fleeing violence back home. He feels they overstay visas because they perceive they just can't safely return.
And speaking of status, the future for those with TPS sounds precarious too. While that status was extended previously because of the conditions in Haiti, the sources note that extension was canceled earlier this year. And TPS for Haitians is reportedly set to expire on August 3rd, leaving them vulnerable to deportation proceedings, potentially based on something like a final order of removal, which is basically a deportation order.
Yeah. What the sources really underscore is how these combined policies, the parole revocation and the travel ban, are viewed by advocates not in isolation. They're seen as just the latest developments in what one source calls an assault on all fronts for all immigrants since the current administration took office. They're presented in the reports as yet another locked door.
We also saw a specific kind of high-profile case mentioned in the sources, the arrest of Hervé Laplante, a Haitian social media blogger.
Yes, him. He's known for controversial, often sensational content, apparently has a very large following within the Haitian diaspora. He was recently arrested and is now in ICE custody down in Florida.
And the reason cited by an ICE spokesperson in the reports was immigration fraud. They claim he gained status fraudulently by being married to 2 women simultaneously, determined him inadmissible, and noted he had a final order of removal already from back in October 2024.
So this case, apparently, because he's so popular on social media, reportedly caught the Haitian community by surprise, according to the sources. It just adds another layer to the discussion, doesn't it? Showcasing how individual enforcement actions based on alleged issues like fraud are also occurring amidst these broader policy shifts and all this community anxiety.
So, drawing this all together then, what does this all mean when we look across these different pieces of information from the sources?
It means Haiti is indeed facing a really complex, multi-layered crisis, as presented in the sources. The internal situation is dire, marked by escalating gang violence, massive displacement, making life incredibly challenging and dangerous for civilians.
And then layered on top of that and interacting with it are these significant rapid shifts in U.S. policy, the revocation of humanitarian parole for hundreds of thousands, and the new travel ban.
Right. And these policies, while they have cited reasons like overstay rates or national security, they are consistently presented in the sources as causing deep uncertainty, fear, and destabilization for the communities affected. That includes many who believe they had followed all the legal processes.
What the sources repeatedly highlight is the human impact on individuals like Zamora facing potential separation from her family, on people like Luckner Raymond, whose work supporting Haiti is disrupted, and on entire communities in the U.S. grappling with fear and confusion, just like Pastor Charles described. But amidst all this, there's also mention of action from Haitian diaspora groups, stepping up and advocating for justice and humanitarian relief based on the conditions described.
That's true. There is that element of community response as well.
So this raises an important thought, I think, for you, the listener, to consider, given everything we've unpacked from these sources. With the crisis in Haiti escalating so dramatically, and these rapid U.S. policy changes, ongoing policies, that the sources note are causing all this strain and divisiveness, what does all of this mean for the individuals caught between these massive forces? And the sources hinted that the coming week might reveal how U.S. lawmakers specifically respond. How might that potential response, based on what the sources suggest, shape what happens next for these vulnerable communities? It's certainly, a lot to think about.
And that's your deep dive. The headlines, the stories, the voices that matter, brought to you by Dodor Vibe FM. Catch us every week for a recap of the news that moves our people, our culture, and our world. Missed part of the show? No stress. Replays continue all week and are always on dodorvibe.com and on our socials at Dodor Vibe. Until next time, stay sharp, stay loud, and stay connected. This has been Dodor Vibe Deep Dive from Little Haiti to the world.